It is football and other F words. My name is Zach Lyons. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. I'm joined by always Mike Herndon at Mike Herndon NFL on Twitter. You can read all of his works, paulkaharski.com. This week from Mike is different draft strategies, which will be for nothing because the Titans are just going to stay and pick where they're at. Isn't that right? Isn't that what they're just going to do?
That's one strategy, though. That's a strategy.
That's one of the strategies.
Yeah, that's an option.
Over at stackingtheinbox.com, where you can find all my written work. On Monday, I wrote a extensive piece on what the Titans could do with Kevin Byard's contract if they were wanting to, get a little bit of relief from a $19 million cap hit in 2020, which is a ridiculously high amount for safety in 2023, but it is what it is because John Robinson.
Again, this is the Ryan Tannehill $37 million.
It's not Kevin Byard's fault. I've never once said that it was Kevin Byard's fault. I said that, in fact, I said in many replies, it is John Robinson's fault. And this week, I'm putting the finishing touches on an NFL data tool for all you draft nerds out there. So $4 a month gets you all kinds of access, all kinds of information, stackingtheinbox.com. We are also partnered with 440 Sports at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Make sure to go check out all the content that they have there. And, of course, finally, we are brought to you by Jaspers, 2-for-1 on Sundays. It's about to be March Madness season. That's where you need to go to watch all the basketball games. Jaspers, they have like 1,000 TVs. They have a massive big screen. So when you want to go see number 12 seed Tennessee lose to whatever Jamokes they are playing in the tournament, you can go down to Jaspers and watch them lose miserably there. Is that a good promo? I feel like that's a good promo.
Yeah, that's great. I enjoyed it.
I'm pretty sure that's where Tennessee's at now. They're like bottom, they're in the teens, the tens if in the tournament.
Are you talking about for like overall seed or like number seed?
Oh, overall seed. Well, we're they're gonna be on like in some bracket number 10, right?
No. They'll be like a 3 or 4 seed, I think.
They'll be that high?
I think so. Gosh. I think they'll still be that high.
I don't know. It seems like they're
overrated. I mean, if the bottom keeps falling out, they could fall down to like 7, 8, somewhere around there.
If they get kicked out of the first round of the SEC tournament, right?
Yeah. More losses to teams like Vanderbilt and those those
jabronis. Yeah. All right. 2-for-1 on Sundays over at Jaspers. Mike, it's combine season. There's a lot to get to. A lot's been said. A lot's been written about the Tennessee Titans that I feel we need to discuss. A lot of movement, a lot of new title changes and new coaches and all kinds of stuff. So it'll be interesting to get into that. And of course, we got Lions season. It's the combine. All the GMs, all the head coaches, and even the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans have talked. We're going to tell you what they said. And we're going to use a new term. I've come up with a new term, devised a new term that is going to be used to describe what is happening with the Tennessee Titans. I came up with it today. All that today on today's episode. Okay. I want to start with something that has kind of bothered me about this whole combine thing. And it specifically revolves around the quarterbacks, and it revolves around the narrative around Bryce Young. You body shaming nerds. Let me tell you something. 90% of the NFL teams have Bryce Young as their number one quarterback. How wide of a margin does he have or is he holding on to the number one? I'm willing to concede that probably not that much. But him not throwing at this combine doesn't fucking matter. Agree or disagree?
It doesn't matter because what's the stat? I think it's like the last 4 or 5 number one overall pick quarterbacks have not thrown at the combine. It's one of those things where, like, if you're the guy, like if you're the guy that's in the top spot, you only have something to lose, right? Like you don't have anything to gain by throwing. Whereas Anthony Richardson does, so I think it makes sense for Bryce not to throw.
Like CJ Stroud, I feel like shouldn't really be throwing, in my opinion, because of all the quarterbacks he has the most to lose.
Well, he's not going to look very good next to Levis and Richardson as far as arm strength goes. And that's the thing. I feel like, I mean, these guys are throwing routes on air and stuff like that. It's not, you're not going to get a ton of like this. This is where Levis is going to get. People are going to freak out and say, "Oh my God, look at the ball pop off his hand!" All this stuff. This is where Levis is going to skyrocket up draft boards.
Which there's not many. Let me say this: I do not think Levis is going to have a lot of movement on NFL draft boards. On analyst draft boards, I don't know how much higher he could get because they all have him ranked ridiculously high. Yeah, I guess that's the thing for me is like the NFL. This is going to be the 4th or 5th year that we have had a show right before the combine where we have to tell and remind people the NFL already has their big board set for the most part, and there's very little movement. Like if Anthony Richardson is 12, he may move up to 11 or 10 right on the draft board after this week. But the thing is what everybody's missing out. The stuff that makes Anthony Richardson already be talked about as skyrocketing up boards is the stuff that's been on tape for a full season already. Like these general managers and these scouts have already seen the Anthony Richardson tape that's skyrocketing. It's just now that the draft nerd analyst community is just now getting around to actually watching these players.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of like, it's like the social media echo chamber takes over with some of this stuff. And, there's a lot of like a pro Richardson, stuff out there right now, which look,
I'll retweet every pro Richardson tweet out there, by the way.
I am too. I mean, because I am intrigued by Anthony Richardson to a large degree because yes, he is far from a finished product from, the accuracy standpoint. I think he's got some things to work on, like footwork wise and everything like that. But like the talent stares you right in the face. And I do think he's a little bit more advanced as far as playing the position of quarterback than he gets credit for sometimes. I think he's kind of an intriguing guy. And his ceiling to me is the highest. I mean, bar none. Like his ceiling is higher than Bryce Young's. It's higher than C.J. Stroud. It is the highest in the class just because of what he is physically able to do. I am intrigued by Anthony Richardson.
I've been intrigued by Anthony Richardson since I watched the Utah game live back in September or whenever it was, the opening game of the college football season. Like, I was like, whoa, this guy is crazy good. And then and I watched the whole season. I've watched probably 7 or 8 games of Anthony Richardson and a lot of up and downs. But I think the best thing to describe him is not raw. He's not a raw prospect. He's an inexperienced prospect.
Yes.
Whereas Levis is a experienced prospect and he stinks. I just will maintain that. He stinks. I have no doubt that he is going to be. I still maintain, and it'll be on every like bold prediction that I do about the draft. He's not going in the first round. It's my bold prediction. I'm sticking with it. I think the draft nerds have gotten this one wrong.
I think he goes top 5.
Oh, I don't know. I hope if he does, listen, I want him to go to the Colts. I want him to go to the Colts. If he does not go to the Colts, I want him to fall all the way out of the first round and fall into the Colts lap in the second round. How about that?
Will Levis will be the quarterback for either the Texans or the Colts. I'm like 100% sure of it. Like that is just something that in my brain is crystallized that is happening.
Okay, so combine season, we'll have more thoughts next week about what we saw at the combine. I mean, like the idea of like doing, here are the 3 most exciting prospects that you need to pay attention to. Look, what you need to pay attention to are the RAS scores, because those are the biggest and best predictors by Kent Lee Plath, if I'm not mistaken, Math Bomb on Twitter, or you can just Google relative athletic score. But that's one of the best predictors of success. And what you need to understand about that's why the combine is so important. If you look at the score and then you go look at the film and those things line up, and this is kind of what Rand Carthen's talked about, the data and the film, and those things line up, that means you have a prospect that has a really high chance of succeeding in the NFL at a high level too. So that's why I always think the combine's important. It's a large piece of the puzzle. There's the combine, there is the film, and there's the stuff that we don't see, right? The interviews, this S2 cognitive scoring that we're about to get into. That is the stuff that matters. You know what doesn't matter? The Wonderlic test. That is the least helpful thing I think that the NFL does. Bench press is probably second. I would put it maybe second, but the Wonderlic is definitely the least important thing to come out of the NFL Combine.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's largely being phased. Not phased out necessarily. Like they're still giving the freaking test for some reason, but I think the importance teams place on it is diminishing. Because it is. I mean, it is. It's hard to. I think it does make sense that sure, this guy could learn a playbook easier than that guy or whatever, and maybe there's some value to be had on like, well, this guy is on an extreme low end of the Wonderlic. Maybe that's a red flag as far as like his ability to retain information or to reason through problem solving skills, whatever. But and we'll talk about like this S2 thing, but I think those kind of tests are going to largely replace the Wonderlic in short order if they're not already, as far as like the importance that NFL teams place on them.
All right, so this S2 cognitive test is from a company, two guys that met up at Vanderbilt that were working on Alzheimer's and doing some clinical trials, and they came up with this testing that actually translated not only really well for Alzheimer's, but into the athletic world. They've been testing, been about a 45-minute test, and they've been testing players at the NFL draft for the last 7 years. And then they've been working with Vanderbilt baseball and other sports and colleges and all this stuff. They've tested by the time that the draft season, I can't remember if it's the draft season, the draft day, or the combine, but they were talking about like 800 athletes they have tested with this. So 800 college football athletes. So all that to say is that it tied into Brock Purdy, who tested off the charts, and that is why he was able to come in and do what he was able to do within the Shanahan offense. Now, this ties into the Titans for a couple different reasons. Rand Carthon obviously came from the San Francisco 49ers. This is a Nashville-based company, and this is a Nashville-based company, like I said, that's been around for the past 7 drafts. John Robinson, literally right before he got fired, like one of his last actions was hiring this company. So about 99.5% of John Robinson's tenure is him just literally ignoring a company doing work in the backyard, his own city. He's just 99.5%. And then as soon as I joke about this, but I feel like here's John Robinson. He's walking into St. Thomas Sports Park. He just hired this company. He's got some dip in his mouth. He's fucking got a half-drink can of Busch Light. And he's just fucking ecstatic. He's walking in. He's like, yeah, me and Miss Amy and Mike, we're about to meet with these guys, and these guys are going to turn us around, taking us into the future, baby. And he sits down. S2 whips out their player dossiers on a couple of the different last few draft classes. He's looking at it. He's like, and in his head, he's like got this sense of dread overcomes him. And like Mike Vrabel and Amy are across the table. They're just like, just tapping. They're huffing. They're sighing. They're giving these evil glares. John Robinson goes, man, I just fucked myself, because there is no way that the majority of the players that the Titans have drafted would have above average grades at the NFL level. Like, I feel like Malik Willis probably failed this test. I personally think that obviously Isaiah Wilson probably failed this test.
Maybe. I mean, it's not, unless it has a component as far as being able to avoid drinking lean and,
yeah, I feel like
donuts on
probably didn't pass this test because his reactions are really slow, and that's what it takes. It's reaction based. It's technique driven. It's being able to recognize patterns. I kind of feel like Roger McCreary may fail this because he had a hard time remembering the simple techniques. Maybe that's coaching, but that's just a few of the players that like popped in my mind, was like, especially this most recent draft class. So I ask you, first off, what's the importance of this test in your mind? Like, is this a good this is obviously a good thing to have. I know you're going to agree that's a good thing to have. But like, what's the importance for you going forward having this? And, you know, do you feel John Robinson waited a little too long to move into the future?
I mean, I definitely think he did. I mean, and we've been harping on this kind of stuff for literally the entirety of this podcast that, you know, the Titans have always lagged behind when it comes to using technology, using analytics, things like that to help themselves. And it is not that the technology replaces the ability of a human to analyze and function, or a scout to be able to watch film and all this other stuff. Like, that all is part of it. But this is free information, or not free. Well, it's obviously not free information. It is information that you can get that does not cost against the salary cap. So from a competitive standpoint, it is free information that you can incorporate as much as you want to, or as little as you want to, but you would have and know the information, which has to help your evaluation process. It's just the same as what I forever wanted them to do, as far as having analytics people on staff, is, you know, being able to build out all these fourth down models and things like that. And, you know, hey, if you decide, Mike Vrabel, that, well, you know, or all the stuff they always bring up, you know, well, your left guard is, you know, his hands hurt, and you know, your quarterback is, you know, he's got a blister on his, you know, finger, and you know, the wind's blowing 3 miles an hour to the east, and, you know, there's the slight glare of the sun at the spot of the field. Like, all these little things, if you want to take all that into account and override the decision, sure, go for it. But at least know what the numbers are. Like, at least know what the baseline numbers are for each given situation. Know them. Like, that is free. You can do that. So I just, yes, they were too close. They were probably too late to get on this train. No surprise. And it's great. Like, I think it's great because the way that they describe the test, and I'm actually going to talk to one of the guys that works over there soon, and try to get some more information on that. So be looking out for that. But
you know what you should do? Me and you should go take this test.
That would be fun. That would be fun, actually.
Schedule it up. Schedule it up. We'll go take that test.
I may pitch that. So, I mean, but yeah, I think the descriptions of, like, what the tests are, like, you know, they show a bunch of images of diamonds with, you know, each one has like a corner missing, and they have to be able to, like, recognize which corner is missing on each one, and, like, how quick they're able to perceive it. And one of the interesting things they brought up is, like, Major League Baseball players have, like, perception ability, which obviously you'd think about it, like, you know, guy being out, having to be able to hit a baseball that is being thrown 100 miles an hour, you know, what, 60 feet, 6 inches away. And, you know, also being able to field the ball, like, hit off the bat, coming off the bat at what, 115, 120 miles an hour, sometimes like that. So the reaction times that the baseball players put up are almost like theoretically should be imperceptible, like how quick they're able to react to visual cues. And I think it's not a mistake. Like, that clearly is correlated to baseball success, but also like they mentioned in the Athletic article, which was great. Brock Purdy, you know, scored off the charts on this thing, and you know, Drew Brees, guys like that.
And Trey Lance scored pretty well too. I like how they threw that in there.
Yeah,
he did pretty well too.
Lance was up there too. Yeah, not maybe, you know, probably not 90th percentile or above, but up there. You know, good enough. And they did mention, by the way, Bryce Young. You know, it sounded like they wouldn't give away his actual score or even like what it is, but they hinted that it was very, very high, and that this draft class had the highest of any draft class among quarterbacks that they've measured. So lots of very I won't say smart, because this isn't a intelligence test. This is a cognitive.
This translates to mental processing at NFL speed. Right? Yes, like when we talk about Malik Willis, there's no doubt that he's a smart guy that can memorize the playbook.
Right.
But his issue is taking that and putting that NFL speed and applying that. And
right.
I'm telling you right now, if I don't get to go and take this test with you, you have to ask what Malik Willis's grade was. And I am just dying to know. I'm just dying to know.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find out. I don't think I'll probably be able to get that information, but we'll see. But the it is, like, it's not intelligence. It is how quick you were able to see something, how quick that relays into your brain, you recognize what it is, and you are able to react to it. And react accurately too, like not just guessing and things like that. So I think it's fascinating work. And I think this has to be probably one of the most predictive or I guess correlated with high functioning quarterback play for certain. I mean, I think they also said linebacker, safety, and corner were some of the other like higher testing or higher correlated position groups as far as like high testing correlating to high performance in the NFL, which makes sense. I mean, a lot of, those are all positions that need to be able to read and react to what they are seeing from the opposition quickly. So I think that's super fascinating stuff. I'm sure Ran Carthon, given his background, will be using that and for the Titans evaluating moving forward. And I hope there is more stuff like that because that's the thing.
There's
Nobody
only
had
14
heard
teams now. At the time of the article was written, which was yesterday, 14 teams. So that means the Titans were included in that 14 NFL teams. So technically they are above average.
One of the rare times that they're an early adopter of technology there. But
just they were too late to save John Robinson's job.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that, I mean, the S2 example is a good one because, like, I had never heard of them before I read this article. And they're in Nashville, it's not like they're a highly publicized group, but you kind of wonder, like, how many other groups out there are doing stuff like this and, like, how quick teams are to take advantage of that kind of stuff. I think says a lot about, like, how good your organization is. Like, are you able to quickly locate and identify things that can help your franchise get an edge before anyone else gets? Because as technology and medicine and all this other stuff continues to evolve, it evolves faster and faster and faster every year. And so teams that are able to quickly identify and get ahead of this stuff, I think give themselves a real advantage. And I hope that will be the MO for the Ran Carthon Titans moving forward, whereas it was not under the Robinson era. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Okay, so I see a lot of comments about the press conference about what Rand said. We're on our journey to talk about that. Luke Steckel is out as run game analyst. That was a quick stint for him. This is going to be a huge loss for the run game because he's put in so much work. I am not surprised that he did not take this phony title, even though Mike Vrabel said they are going to hire someone, which means they're probably just going to like give it to like the assistant running back coach or something crazy like that. They're going to hire someone for this position. We have talked about this on the show like 2 or 3 times about Mike Vrabel's comments about loyalty and not having coaches on staff that have one foot out the door and always looking for other opportunities. And we've had brought it up that we kind of thought that was about Luke Steckel. And now Luke Steckel has reportedly did not interview for the offensive coordinator job, which again, now ties back to like, I don't think there were 6 people interviewed. Like that's a load of horse shit.
We don't need to go back.
But we're not getting back into that. But he didn't even get interviewed for that job. And then he gets this phony title because he doesn't get a job anywhere else. And now he's an assistant on the offensive line staff for the Chicago Bears. So it feels like he's taken a step back just because he's a little pissy, which means, see ya, Luke. I think that's a good guy to go ahead and let go, because if he's going to just like go work under on someone else instead of taking the opportunity to turn this into his own, you don't want that guy here, right?
Yeah, this whole thing is very strange to me because I was absolutely shocked when the Chargers interviewed him for their offensive coordinator spot anyways, because I was like, I mean, he'd only been a tight ends coach, like an actual position coach at the NFL level for like a year, maybe. Was this his first year as tight ends?
Yes.
Or was this his second?
Second.
Yeah, because it's Downing second year. That's right. So it was his second year as a position coach. The first year, the tight ends were unmitigated disaster. This past year, they were better, but it's, even setting that aside, I think it was just kind of weird that was one of their interviews. And it makes me feel like now, especially after I think it's very clear now that run game analyst was a demotion, and quite likely that Pat O'Hara got a demotion being the passing game coordinator, or not passing game coordinator, pass game analyst, going from quarterbacks coach to that. So sounds like that was a demotion too then. But now he's taking in, a lesser job than the one that he had as tight end coach. So he's going backwards. He's not going forward. So that makes me think that Chargers interview was just a total sham. Like Brandon Staley or Tom Telesco, somebody in LA owed Luke Steckel's agent a favor and got him this interview. And that was just a total sham. And I'm not buying it one bit that he was actually under consideration for that position.
Yeah, it's a little insane. In good news though, good luck in your future endeavors to Luke Steckel. You probably just made a horrible mistake, by the way. In good news though, Terrell Williams gets a assistant head coach added to his title as D-line coach, which is Mike Vrabel probably, again, I say phony titles, but I don't really think that they all are just like, it's just for no reason. There is a reason for this, and that reason is that Terrell Williams needs to be getting looks as defensive coordinator, and I think this helps put him in a higher profile to get that done.
I also think it may be justification to give him more money, too. I mean, sometimes that stuff matters.
And he's earned it, I feel like.
It definitely. I mean, like, if you look at positions across the team, defensive line is like the one spot that they just very consistently get a lot of production out of their guys. I mean, you look at the development of, obviously, Jeffrey Simmons was immensely talented. It is immensely talented. And you don't want to give Williams too much credit for Jeffrey Simmons, but Tear Tart, yeah, he deserves a lot of credit for Tear Tart. Naquan Jones, yeah. If you look at even guys like who's the other one I was just thinking about. I'm totally blanking on it now. Anyways,
another fat guy.
Danico Autry has been fantastic since coming over. So, like, I mean, he gets he was a good player when he arrived too. So I'm not saying that's a Terrell Williams creation, but Tear Tart is a Terrell Williams creation, and that is a guy that's turned into a really good football player for them. So yeah,
so good that he's got Drew Rosenhaus as an agent now. I mean, that's it. When you get Drew Rosenhaus, as your agent, you've reached a good high profile in the NFL.
Absolutely. So yeah, I like that Terrell Williams gets this. I mean, he's definitely definitely been a great coach for them, and I hope he gets some defensive coordinator looks. He should.
And if he does, comp picks for the Titans, or if Shane Bowen leaves, I would have to venture a guess that, Chris Harris is here.
Yeah, probably.
But one of those guys could get that job right there. Okay. Take it with a grain of salt. Jared Stillman tweets out today, and we don't know where he heard it from or anything. He could just be hearing it because he recorded himself talking. But
is he in Indy?
No, I don't believe he is.
He's not? Okay.
Hold on. I can tell you. No, he's here in Nashville.
Okay.
I just scrolled up on his timeline. This is what he said. Hearing there's interest from free agent tackle Mike McGlinchey in joining the Titans. So apparently whoever's told him this is hearing that Mike McGlinchey has interest. McGlinchey knows Ren Carthon from San Francisco and could be an option at either tackle spot, played left tackle in college at Notre Dame before playing right tackle in San Francisco. He figures to have a robust market. I like it when people use the word robust. Mm-hmm. He cannot come in here and we have our own source, Kyle Madsen, who lives and follows in San Francisco. And Kyle Madsen writes for the Candlestick Chronicles. He's co-host of the Blue Wire Pods, managing editor of Niners Wire. He does the 49ers post game at 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. He's also a wine guy, just in case you were wondering that. It was all from his Twitter bio, by the way. You can follow him on Twitter at Kyle A. Madsen. He says putting Mike McGlinchey at left tackle would be a disaster. So just so you guys know that if Mike McGlinchey does indeed come here, it would be at right tackle, which begs the question, Mike, Mike McGlinchey signs here. Your first thoughts about the outlook of your favorite guy from week 1 to week 9 and your least favorite guy from week 10 to week 18, Nicholas Petit-Frere.
It means he's moving positions, which is probably good. I mean, I don't know. I'm not like Nicholas Petit-Frere. I am neither out on him nor am I convinced that he is a good right tackle. Like
he's in Mike Herndon purgatory.
He is in Mike Herndon purgatory, and I don't think he should stop you from doing anything. Like, you should not change your plans if you have a great right tackle in Mike McGlinchey that you can go get and put him in and plug him in and fill one spot of the offensive line and say, okay, we're okay right here. We are good. Do it. Go do it. Figure out if MPF can play somewhere else. If he can't, he'll play on the bench, and that's fine too. He is not someone that you say, well, we have to make him our right tackle. Otherwise, the world ends. Like, that is not where he is in his value to this team. He is get in where you fit in kind of guy. And if you can put other pieces at right tackle, if you could get DeJuan Jones in the draft, take DeJuan Jones, stick him at right tackle, figure it out with NPF. Like, I am not holding NPF's spot for anything. If there's an upgrade available, go get it and figure out what you want to do with him later.
Okay, this brings us to my term. So I got a term for you, Mike, and I think you're going to like it. It ties into F1 a little bit because there is something called this term for F1. This roster is not rebuilding. It's not remodeling. It's not retooling. We're getting out all the rewords. No more rewords. This roster's headed for a glow up, Mike. A glow up. For those that don't know, you're taking so a glow up happens when you start out ugly and then you turn into a pretty hot person. The F1 drivers are famous for their F1 glow ups. But this is a glow up. And this ties into Mike McGlinchey because I feel like, and this also ties into S2, because I don't think NPF would have passed high on the S2 cognitive test, even though he's a super smart guy. I just don't think the reactions are going to be there. I think that every position on this team is open to a glow up. Quarterback, offensive tackle, which is right tackle included. I think cornerback, safety. I don't think anybody. I think Jeffrey Simmons is truly the only untouchable player. Now, I say that. I know that Harold Landry is also technically untouchable, but like, if you were just taking contracts out of the situation, I think Jeffrey Simmons is your truly only untouchable player. There are other guys that are kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck with. But I think this roster is coming in for a glow up. What do you think? What do you think about my term?
I like it. It's better. It's better than all the rewords because those do get overused, and there's only just so many ways you can kind of spin that. So yeah, I like the glow up.
Glow up, and it's also a little bit more positive, right? Like, it's a glow up. Like, we're putting on some makeup. We're getting in shape. We're maybe, getting a different haircut, going out and shopping, putting on some new clothes. We're feeling good about ourselves, like in a glow up. Like, it's almost like in Parks and Rec, a treat yourself.
I like it. I like it.
So we're going with that for when it comes to this roster, because like I said, the Mike McGlinchey thing, obviously, if he wants to come here, and you have to you're right. You can't put good players on the back burner just because you have a rookie, because it's Rand Carthon team, right? And like, he's not tied to any of these players emotionally. On top of that, Mike Vrabel has pretty much blamed all the players for all the problems relentlessly. So he's probably not emotionally tied to 80% of the roster. Like, I feel like there was a selected few that are Vrabel buds, but most of his roster could probably go to hell. Like he's got, and that this also ties into the fact that I think why a glow up is occurring is because they're so desperate not to start off 0-1 on the first game of the season. Like, I feel like they cannot carry over a 7-game, 8-game losing streak, however long it was, that long ass losing streak into 2023. And not to say that they're, gonna, if they think they're gonna win the Super Bowl, they're fucking nuts. But they want to be competitive, and I think a glow up just makes it sound a little bit better for everybody involved.
I mean, I like it from a branding standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm not sure from a strategy standpoint. I agree that they should
I agree with you. My overall premise is, I'm just telling you what I think the Titans are thinking. I agree with you that I think that a blow up over a glow up is the better strategy. Look at that. We're just gonna blow up and glow up. We've really rebranded this whole offseason.
It works.
Blow up and glow up. Okay. Woo, man, these press conferences. Where do you want to start with Tim Kelly first, or do you want to? Let's start with Tim Kelly first.
Okay, all right.
You could get lost in those fucking eyes. Those are some crystal blue eyes. I don't know if he did acid before he showed up, because those things were peeping.
It was, yeah. He's got some intense eyes. He's also kind of got that Derek Carr like permanent eyeliner thing going on. Which also his brother has that too, so that just must be like some sort of genetic Kelly brother.
It's a Cro-Magnon thing, because like your forehead goes over your eyes a little bit, like the old caveman. It's like he's not fully evolved. And speaking of not being fully evolved,
what a transition!
What a transition
for a podcast professional, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what a great! Speaking of not fully evolved, this offense is not going to change at all. I mean, can you believe the idiocy coming out of his mouth to say, well, I don't think we're really we're that predictable last year. And he doubles down and even says, well, even when it comes to running on first downs, don't feel like we were that predictable. Your thoughts?
I think it's a difficult situation for him to be in, because look, he's not, regardless of what he thinks of Todd Downing personally, he's not going to come out and trash him and say, yeah, we were super predictable last year. Todd's a fucking idiot.
Okay, it is going to the opposite end of the spectrum. This is all he had to say, and I gotta find it because of course someone has to go, I mean, what do you want him to say? My colleagues and I were terrible. There was not a single positive thing about the offense last year, from play design and play call and execution. Here's all I said. Immediately after I got this is what I typed out. I think there's an opportunity for us in certain situations to be less predictable on offense.
I think that sounds better. That does sound better.
Get me into PRs. They need PR help so bad. Get me.
I agree. I agree with you. I think he needs to do a better job of spinning it, but I don't think we should take like word for word his answers to be exactly what he thinks of what Todd Downing did last year, what the offense did. Pretty good chance that like behind those smoldering blue eyes, there's a little bit more. I would do it totally differently if I was in charge last year. I have to believe that's true.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we both have said this was an underwhelming hire, and part of that is that we just don't think he's that inspiring, and maybe this is part of that uninspiration, is that he's just gonna, he's gonna just kind of like be a statue all through his career, because that's what he kind of felt like today. What do you think about this term that he wants the offense to have this illusion of being complex? I thought that was an interest. Instead of actually being complex, he wants to have the illusion of being complex, which I guess would go, if I were to dive deep, because nobody asked to follow up on this illusion of complex. And I've watched both Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2 recently. So I got this little like magic thing going on. So this illusion of being complex obviously means that it's really going to be simple and predictable, but he wants to try to outsmart defensive coordinators.
I mean, ultimately, I think he's headed down the right path here, in my opinion, because that is really what the basis of all NFL offense is. You want it to be simple for your guys and complicated for the other team's guys. Because the more complicated you make your actual offense, the more your players have to think, the less fast they play. Like it's
as we know by S2 scores, they're all dumb.
Well, there's that too. So I think if he's able to actually execute on that, to where look, Shanahan did this to a masterful degree. It's not that they run like an unbelievable number of concepts in San Francisco. It's that they're able to run it out of all these different personnel looks. They're able to run it out of all these different formational looks. They're able to run it out of all these different, motions and window dressings and different looks. it's the same play. It's the same things that they're asking the players to execute. It just looks so different every time, and it keeps defenses off guard and on their toes, and all these other things. It's really kind of the beauty of that offense. So I think he's headed down the right path. I mean, I understand people. It doesn't always sound great when you say you want your your offense to be really simple, but just maybe make it look complex. But that is really ultimately what the goal of every offensive coordinator is, I think.
All right, Mike. Mike Vrabel spoke today. It was a little bit more of the same stuff over and over. I mean, stuff that we've heard before. His relationship with Ran Carthon's growing. Ran Carthon has this way of making people feel important, apparently, which I thought was a weird way to put it, because it's like he makes everyone in the building, anybody in the building, feel important. I'm thinking that must mean that a lot of people just don't feel important in the building.
Well, maybe John Robinson was making them throw away his spit cups and
maybe.
Shit like that.
But there's two things that I thought that spoke a lot about where this offseason's going, and it was Mike Vrabel said that he's looking for players that have speed, violence, and versatility. So now he's added violence into his repertoire. Now we've talked about speed, we talked about versatility, but the speed thing goes back to stuff that Ran Carthon said about being able to process the game at a high level and play the game fast, which Mike Vrabel has talked about. We always feel like we're the slowest people on the team or on the field. So again, that all ties back to S2, because now Mike Vrabel has the S2 data. He's like, well, we got a bunch of slow motherfuckers, both physically and mentally. So we're gonna fix that. But the violence is something that's new, and there's a lot of hard-hitting players coming into this draft. Specifically, Devon Witherspoon is like the first person when someone says violent out of this draft. Like Devon Witherspoon is the first name that comes into my head. What do you think about what this term means for the players that they're going to be looking for? Because obviously, if you're fast and you're violent, you're probably going to have a good chance of being on the Tennessee Titans radar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the violent thing kind of fits Vrabel's style to a large degree. I mean, that's I still go back to Terrell Williams talking about Jeffrey Simmons when he was like, it might have been his rookie year, first few games. They some reporter asked Terrell Williams. It's one of the funniest answers I've ever heard a coach give. Asked Terrell Williams, what would you say Jeffrey Simmons' play style is trending towards at the NFL level? And his answer was just straight up, it's trending towards violence. And I think that bears out in Big Jeff's game. So I think that's kind of what he's getting at there. He just wants, big, angry, fast guys. And that's good. That's what the NFL is. The NFL is the biggest, the angriest, and the fastest. So I'm all for his new trio of traits. Because at one point, didn't he have three things that he said he was looking for a long time? But it was some other group of three. I can't remember what it was now.
Oh,
I'd have to go back.
We'd have to go back and check. But this is a totally different Vrabel that we're seeing. I think that it's a Vrabel that has evolved, and I think this also goes to your offensive lineman, right? Like he's going to be looking for some, like if Trevor Penning came out in this draft or Tyler Smith came out in this draft, which we know Tyler Smith was on the board, or at least the Cowboys felt like he was on the board for the Tennessee Titans. Those feel like the offensive linemen that would be like, okay, these guys, after hearing that, I'd be like, okay, these are the offensive linemen I need to circle. So I feel like you got to find your nastiest offensive linemen, because that's who they're going to be looking for. As long as they're athletic, we got to check those RAS scores. But that's what it kind of feels like, is that they're going to move at a faster pace than everything else, and they're going to rely on players to be able to attack and be violent and be available, which brings us to, he was asked about David Long, and the fucking first word out of his mouth was durability is a big thing. I mean, like durability. And we know that with the, there was the 8-4 guys, and then they were talking about the guys who got injured, and David Long was mentioned again surrounding durability. I get the sense that they're probably going to re-sign Dylan Cole before they re-sign David Long, and it's going to send Titans fans into a tailspin.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't bring back David Long, but it's God, they don't have anyone to play that spot on the roster if they don't. I mean, it's so bad. It's that becomes a major hole for them if they don't bring him back. Which, you know, there's guys in the draft, there's other guys in free agency. I know Azeez Al-Shire from San Francisco is somebody that Rand Carthon has connections to. Obviously, would be a good fit for that role. But I mean,
Bobby Wagner.
But well, yeah, there's Bobby Wagner too. But you know, even like I mean, look. I mean,
of course, you know what's going to happen. He's gone to 9 straight All Pros, right? He's been an All Pro 9 straight years, and he was the top rated inside linebacker by PFF standards. And he's going to come here and get injured week 1, and because he's never missed a game, and all of a sudden we're going to pay him. Titans are going to pay him. We're going to see him on the field, and he's going to get injured week 1, and then we're going to be like, we should never sign old people, even though he's like fucking awesome still.
That would add up. I mean, like I love Bobby Wagner. Don't get me wrong. I'd be happy if he's here, but I guess part of me is still like, the fuck are we doing with Bobby Wagner? If we sign Bobby Wagner, does that make the defense so good that it doesn't matter that we're going to have shit for offense and 2023? I mean, they're not winning the Super Bowl this year, you know. So what are you doing signing Bobby Wagner? And why Bobby Wagner ain't coming here anyways? Bobby Wagner's going to go.
He's definitely not coming here.
He's going to go to the Bills to replace Tremaine Edmond, or he's going to go somewhere where he has a chance to actually win. He is not coming to Tennessee. But anyways, but then again, like I agree with you that I think. It seems to me like they are moving on from David Long. They're moving on from Nate Davis. I just get the feeling that neither of those guys are going to be back, which is kind of crazy because I would have said, 3 months ago that both those guys were locks. They had to be back. And yeah, here we are 3 months later.
We said that if, there's a good chance when David Long goes to another team, you're probably never going to hear from him again. Like, I mean, it's a very good chance. And I will say this, that I do think that there could be a Jayon Brown kind of situation where they let him test a mark and then he comes back. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. It doesn't sound like Mike Vrabel, and maybe we're reading too much into his words, but it doesn't really sound like Mike Vrabel has a lot of trust in David Long. And the Tennessee Titans are about to have to get into a bunch of negotiations, and this is going to transition us into this, but they're looking for players that have versatility, right? So this free agent class, this draft class, is going to be versatility because he said something that was really interesting where basically the San Francisco 49ers roster almost got to a point where they consider it positionless, which I think is exactly fits the mold of what the Titans have been trying to do on defense. But I think that fits the mold of what they want to be. And I think that is a good sign for the future. But that's a lot. It's going to be a lot of people that don't have a spot on this roster that have been on this roster for a while because not a lot of players are positionless on the Tennessee Titans team.
No, and I mean, I do think about guys like Treylon Burks and Chika Okonkwo, who do kind of fit that mold of, versatile. You can line them up in different spots. Both of them did line up in different spots at times last year. I think that, those guys are, I mean, of all the players on the Titans offensive roster, those are the two guys I would bet on being still on the Titans in 2024. Like, those are the only two I would probably actually put money
it kind of feels that way, right? Like, on the offensive side of the ball, they're the only two with their jobs, like, safe.
Yeah, they are stapled in for 2023.
And listen, that does not mean that we think that Treylon Burks is marked in as wide receiver 1, but he's definitely a starting wide receiver on this roster.
For sure.
That's about as far as we could go with it.
They are like the building blocks. Now you don't have very many building blocks. You've got like, if you're trying to build like a Lego set or whatever, you've got like a little like long skinny piece, and then you've got like one of the little two block pieces. but that's all you got right now. You got to go find a bunch of other pieces to build whatever you want to build, because right now you got nothing. So I don't know. I think the positionless thing is interesting because it is, I think, where the NFL is generally going at the higher ends. And the Niners were a great example of that. They were able to do so much offensively with those skill position players, that it made to the point where Brock Purdy, and his amazing S2 scores were able to damn near get them to the Super Bowl. So I hope that's where Rand Carthon's wanting to go. I'd be interested to know who you feel like out of this draft class fits that description. There's a couple
positionless. I would think Tyjae Spears could be technically positionless because you could put him at, he's a running back that you can also put out on wide receiver in a lot of different ways, and you could do a lot of different things with him. Man, that's really tough because, you look at the wide receivers, Rashee Rice could probably be a guy that could be in a Deebo Samuel-esque mode where he's a wide receiver and then he lines up as a running back. I think a guy like Anthony Johnson Jr. out of Virginia can be a safety cornerback hybrid that can also play in the box a little bit. Those would be some guys I could think that there's off the top of my head from the Senior Bowl. Like Cody Mock could technically be positionless because he can fill in at tackle, but he can also play guard and center. We've seen him do that. Blake Freeland could play both sides of the line on left and right tackle. So there's a couple. Jarrett Patterson would be another one. He's a guard and a center, not necessarily a tackle. Those would be some guys that I would consider positionless, I guess. But I'm trying to think. I don't feel like there's a linebacker that can be in and out, I guess.
I know we kind of pooped on him when our buddy No Flags Film brought him up at one point, but Parker Washington, I think, kind of fits that mold in the fact that he's more of he's kind of a wide receiver in a running back's body. And he's got some of that run after catch stuff and things like that. But I think Parker Washington is a guy that fits that kind of positionless mold to a large degree.
Yeah, I could see that. I think those would be some of the guys. Speaking of positions, another thing that I really liked out of the Rand Carthon press conference. First, I want to say one thing: the Rand Carthon we saw today and heard from today had a entirely different demeanor than the one that we saw at his opening press conference. And I don't care. I just think it's hilarious that he was all nice and he was jiving, having fun, and then a few weeks in, it's he's down. He's serious business. He's shutting questions down. He's telling you right now, he's breaking the will. And he's party time's over, motherfuckers. Rand Carthon, Big Daddy Rand is here in the building. He's going to tell you, this is how we're going to do press conferences. I thought that was great. But I thought one thing he did say was that he asked for every position coach to put together a highlight reel of what you are looking for in a position. And you have to think that if there was some Twitter fans or Twitter followers or whatever were asked to do the same, it would all be highlight clips of Dylan Radins and Malik Willis, depending on which position coach they were for. However, I thought that was really great. Mike Vrabel loved it because he loved that he was getting input from his position coaches, which it sounds like, again, that's a not so subtle jab at, we haven't ever been asked to do this before, but we're being asked to do it now. So, Mike, what do you think of, first off, do you trust the position coaches? And do you think that, because there was a part in there that Rand Carthon said, if I have a question about what I'm seeing on film, I go next door. Our offices are right next to each other. I go next door and I ask Mike Vrabel, am I looking at this right? What do you think about this new era collaboration is actually in practice? What do you think about that?
I liked a lot of what I heard. I mean, as far as do I trust the position coaches? It depends on the position coach. Like I said, I trust Terrell Williams, trust Chris Harris,
Coach Haas.
No, I don't trust him at all. I don't trust him at all.
He looks like an offensive line coach, though.
He does. I trust him. So casting that role, I like it. But yeah, I don't know if it'll be good or not. I mean, I trust most of them. I think most of the position coaches I generally have a good feeling for right now. That they're good to above average coaches, but yeah, I mean, I like that they're looking at new ways of doing things as far as these cut ups, and like I guess it does make sense that hey, show me physically what it looks like for you when a guy is doing it the way you want it done, and that way I can go find guys on tape. But the interesting thing to me is, like, I mean, I think he even used the example of releases are off a line of scrimmage, or how a guy uses his hands or whatever. And I almost wonder, like, if you're trying to go find guys that already do it the way that the coaches want them to, it's fine. I mean, you may be able to, but I don't know that should dictate. I mean, right? Like that should only be like, okay, well, if you're tie breaking between two guys, because otherwise that's what the coaches are paid to do, is to make these guys learn the techniques that they want them to use. And I mean, sure, if the guy already knows it, that's great. Maybe he can hit the ground running a little bit faster. But if the guy's significantly more talented, I'd rather them coach the guy up that doesn't know how to use that technique than draft a guy who's more mediocre talent, but is fully developed at this specific release or whatever. But I don't know. That's just one example that I kind of comes to my mind that I'm like, I wonder how much influence that has. I would hope not a ton, but it at least is interesting that they're trying to get that kind of information. It could also just be them trying to learn what this offense really looks like, and what he needs to, what kind of players he does need to be shopping for. So it's an interesting approach. I'll give him points for thinking outside the box on that stuff.
All right, I'm going to try. Well, I'm not going to try it, but I was going to try to pull up a clip real quick, but I don't want to end us up in silence and just like Mike Vrabel talking. But the final thing that Ran Carthon said, because I think Kenneth here has hit the nail on the head for what most fans are feeling. I hated almost everything out of the press conferences today. And while we have highlighted some positive stuff, a lot of negative stuff as well, this one I feel like is just like, is a nothing burger. Like what he said about Ryan Tannehill today. He said, Ryan Tannehill is under contract. Ryan Tannehill is our quarterback because he's under contract. And Ryan Tannehill will be our quarterback. We've heard all this before from other coaches. We've heard all this before from other GMs. He's the Titans quarterback until he's not the Titans quarterback.
100%.
And don't overreact to, listen, I'm not saying that Ryan Tannehill is not going to be the quarterback, and I'm not saying that's been the plan all along. I've been pretty much saying that I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans in 2023, and I think he'll likely be extended. But these words, they mean nothing. There is nothing to take away from this other than he's our quarterback until he's not our quarterback. Because you know what? I remember when Tom Brady, and I brought this up a couple of times already, but I remember when Tom Brady was going through free agency, and at the combine, they asked Bruce Arians, and I've been on this train right before Bruce Arians said it, that Tom Brady's going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then Bruce Arians says, Jameis Winston is our quarterback. We're not interested in Tom Brady, or whatever he said. I mean, he basically said, we're not talking Tom Brady, not interested in Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. Well, how did that end up? Like, give me a break. Like, this is not something to like worry about, fret about, or anything.
We saw it last year with AJ Brown. I mean, it was always, we're not trading AJ Brown. We're not, and then AJ Brown gets traded. These words mean literally nothing. It is factually true that Ryan Tannehill is under contract. He is going to be a Titan for at least a few more hours. That's all this really means. Like, it's sometime between a few more hours and the end of his contract is how long he'll be a Titan. So I just, wad that up and throw it away. It means absolutely nothing.
Because just because they keep Tannehill, like we've said, does not mean you are not allowed to draft and develop another quarterback.
Right.
Like, it does not mean that you can't go quarterback in round 1 in some way, or maybe Anthony Richardson or Hendon Hooker fall to round 3 or 4 and you draft them there or something like that. I mean, there's crazy stuff that happens. It does not prevent you from getting a quarterback next year. It means nothing. In the big scheme of things, this team, I've said this recently. I don't think Derrick Henry adds any wins to this roster if he wasn't on this roster. And I think that like Ryan Tannehill's like good for like 1.5 or 2 win difference. Like if Ryan Tannehill's on this team in 2023, what, a 9-8 win team, maybe 10 if you're lucky. And then if he's off the team, you're probably looking at, because of Mike Vrabel, a 7-8 win team, right? I mean, like, it's not a big deal if he's here or not. And this right here, what is said in the combine does not dictate anything other than it's the same thing they've been saying. Ryan Tannehill's the quarterback, and we're still evaluating him. And someone brought up a restructure, which I wish they would quit using the term restructure when they mean extension. I don't know who asked about it, but I'm sure it's Buck, because he likes messing up those two words all the time on his radio show. But he said, we're not going to negotiate publicly in front of the media. And I'm okay with that. We're not going to negotiate through the media. I don't like it because I like talking about contracts and I like doing that. But heck, you know what that means? That we're just going to be in a constant state of worry and wonderment and confusion until we get it until like year 3 when we kind of figure out what Rand Carthon's all about.
Well, it's going to be it's the same as it's always been. We'll find out when we get the Jim Wyatt tweet that comes out from the team of we have agreed to terms on a restructured contract for Ryan Tannehill or whatever, Ryan Tannehill signs 2-year extension or whatever ends up happening. It'll come out in a Jim Wyatt tweet. It won't. It'll just be, hey, news dump. Here we go. So it's I mean, it's frustrating in a sense, but I don't blame him. I wouldn't, if I was a player, I wouldn't want my GM out there talking about my contract to the media and playing the games of like.
He even told agents. He even said, "I've told agents this is how we do business. We're not gonna do these little back shots and back channeling through the media." And you know what? Respect. If that's how you're going to do business and that's how you want to do business, that's how you need to do business because you're the GM. I'm not worried about Ryan. Like, we're not going to know anything about Ryan Tannehill till after this week. And we're not going to know anything about Ryan Tannehill till probably like right up until free agency, because the Aaron Rodgers domino has to fall. The Derek Carr domino has to fall. And while there will be talks and rumors and elbow rubbing at St. Elmo's up in Indianapolis at the Combine this week, not really a lot ever gets done at the Combine. It's always after the Combine when it all starts coming in waves because everybody's talked about it. Now they're back at the offices. This week's for the draft. That's where their main focus is, with a little bit of, wink, wink, nudge, nudge transactions. And then they're going to come back. They're going to put the NFL Combine in the rear view for a couple of weeks and handle free agency. And then it's going to be draft season again. It's a cycle of the off season. So it's like the whole Bud Dupree thing. He says, like, I haven't really dove deep into Bud Dupree and haven't really gotten to know him. That's because
he's going to cut him.
He's probably going to cut him. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's not, if they wait till March 15th, even though they don't technically have to, I mean, like, to have to wait to announce it, then you could do what the Rams did with Bobby Wagner. Just because they wait doesn't mean anything. And, at the end of the day, this is a team destined for a glow up. And I think there's a lot to be positive about going forward. I know you don't like to speak of positivity, but I think there's a lot to be positive about.
No, I do think there's a lot to be positive about long term. I don't think there's a lot to be positive about as far as like 2023 success. I'm not totally like down on the franchise. I just think they're going. I just think the dip is going to be a little bit deeper than you do.
Mike, I want to get your thoughts because we've had talks about Derrick Henry, and this will be our final topic. And we talked about it a little bit between ourselves about how much emphasis do you think the Titans put on Derrick Henry getting the rushing touchdowns up to 100, getting his yardage up to 10,000 here within the franchise. And we kind of thought that Mike Vrabel may have a little bit of, emotional attachment to that idea. But Braden on a football show on Monday followed up with on the story of the Bills inquiring about the Derrick Henry. Turns out they have, and there have been a few other teams seriously inquiring about Derrick Henry's availability. Again, while that is kind of big news, it's also kind of not, because anybody that needs a running back should be inquiring about Derrick Henry and should be inquiring about a running back on the last deal. Yet last year, their deal, which they can take on and extend, because if you're playing the what if game when you hit free agency, right? I know there's a lot of running backs hitting free agent or set to hit free agency, and there's a lot of running backs in the draft, but you're playing the what if game. Like, you don't know for sure. It's like a game of roulette. Who's actually going to be available and who actually wants to come to your team? Derrick Henry is a for sure thing. So, of course, there are GMs doing their due diligence and asking about Derrick Henry. Do you think that Mike Vrabel is willing to trade Derrick Henry? Okay, so that's one question. My other question is, what do you think is a reasonable return? What's the least that they get back in return that you're okay with? Like, is it 2 picks, like a 5th and a 6th, or is it only a 3rd round pick? Like, what's the least they could get in return that you'd be okay with Derrick Henry being another team's uniform?
I do think Vrabel would trade him, because ultimately I think Vrabel, while I think he loves Derrick Henry and I think he has a huge amount of respect for Derrick Henry, I also think that to Vrabel, I can't see him being that sentimental about it. You know, he was traded, you know, in his career. It's one of those things that happens. I think he understands what it means to be, you know, a 30-year-old running back in today's NFL, especially one that, you know, carries such a huge workload as what Henry has over the last few years. I think he would consider it. As far as what return I think they should get, I probably wouldn't deal him for anything less than a 3rd.
What if it's like a 4th and a 6th, or a 5th and a 7th, or something like that?
Maybe like a 4th and a 5th, maybe.
That's kind of where I was
up
at.
to the value of the 3rd. I think that's about what he's. Honestly, I mean, I know a lot of fans think, like, because I still get some people in my mentions on Twitter saying, like, what do you think about trading Henry for the 1st overall pick plus the Bears like 2nd pick plus something else? And I'm like, I mean, I'd say yes before they could get like the back half of that trade out of their mouth, but that is 100% not what he's worth in the NFL. So I think at most you're going to get a 2nd. Like, that is the very, very most that you could possibly imagine getting for Derrick Henry going into his age 30 season with, you know, the kind of wear and tear he has, and the fact that he's such a specific player. Like, you have to be.
He's not positionless.
He is not positionless. He is not a guy that you can just line up anywhere or, you know, spread out and throw the football to, all this other stuff. Like, he is a lineup, you know, 7 yards behind the quarterback, under center, run the ball downhill running back, like old school running back. He is a dying breed, which is why he's so unique and interesting and like fascinating to a lot of people, including myself. But his value to other NFL teams is not that high, because he's not. I mean, playoff teams would be the ones that would be trying to get a guy like that.
I would not trade him to the Bills unless they offered me a 1st, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't do that. Like, if it is the Bills, you have to give him like a 1st or a 2nd.
It'd be very painful to see him there. But you know, I do think there's the thing of, like, if the Titans are going to go into this, you know, glow up with the recognition that it is like, you know, there might be a little bit of cosmetic surgery that needs to happen here. Not just the makeup and everything else. Like, we may need to go under the knife and get that nose taken care of, and, you know, ears lower, whatever. Understanding that it's going to be painful for a little bit. I wonder if they don't consider that Derrick Henry could almost serve as a distraction to the fan base while they're going through this, like, period of bad play, because, like, you know, and we've talked about this, and I know you guys talked about it on a football show, that Derrick Henry has a chance to hit 10,000 yards this season. He has a chance to hit 100 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns this season. And every player who's ever done that is either in the NFL Hall of Fame or going to the Hall of Fame. Adrian Peterson's the only one that's not in right now, and he will be. So the chase for those milestones could be like a little bit of a distraction of like, hey, we still got Derrick Henry, we're playing Malik Willis at quarterback and we're going to win 4 games this year. But hey, Derrick Henry, he's going for 10,000 and 100, and only, 7 running backs in NFL history have done that. I wonder if maybe they wouldn't use him as a little bit. There's also some added benefit of like, if you do have a young quarterback, having Henry in the running game and all that could be a benefit to them too. So like there's football reasons too, but from a PR standpoint, there may be some value to Henry hanging around and just,
I said if someone offered a 3rd and a 5th, they should ship his ass out of here. And the man, a couple of people did not like that on a football.
Oh, I can't imagine that was very popular. Yeah, no, that's
listen, just get his ass out of here. And listen, I'm not a guy who hates Derrick Henry. I just, I understand the value of the running back position and understand where this team's at. And the more draft picks this team has, the better it can solve some holes a little bit quicker.
As somebody who watched the end of Eddie George's career with the Titans, that was fucking painful. That was not a glorious run to the finish line there.
No. And he even says that he wishes he would have just retired.
Henry's a better player than Eddie George
and Henry still has years left, but like
he does. Henry is not to like what the last couple years of Eddie George's Titans career was like yet. But those days are coming. Like that is just
they'll come quick.
That's just the fact. Yeah.
Okay, listen. Let's play a game with Tannehill, Derrick Henry.
Right.
You got keep just as is, extend, trade, or cut. So extend, keep, trade, cut. Ryan Tannehill. What's your prediction?
Prediction?
We'll update this once the quarterback carousel sells down a little bit. We'll revisit this heading into free agency.
Right now, today, I'm going to predict they give him a minor extension.
That's where I'm at. We're both at minor extension. Okay. Extend, keep, trade, or cut Derrick Henry.
I'm going to say they keep Henry.
Just keep him as is.
Yeah,
okay.
No change.
No extension or anything, you don't think?
No.
I think I'm going to go with trade.
Oh.
I'm going to put it up there. I'm going to throw it out there in the ether and just see what happens.
Okay.
Or speaking of just see what happens, you should go see what happens at Jasper's in Nashville. 2-for-1 on Sundays. They got all kinds of TVs. They got a gaming room. They got all kinds of stuff for you. Great food. Jasper's in Nashville. Head over there. You can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Herndon NFL. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. You can find my written stuff at stackingtheinbox.com. $4 a month is going to get you access to a tool that only you would be able to see if you are a paid subscriber, and only be able to use and reference if you're a paid subscriber. And it's going to have a lot of data on there for you NFL draft gurus or nerds. And then Mike, you can find all of his written stuff over at paulkarski.com. We're both part of the 440 Sports Podcast Network. All kinds of great shows there. Megan Barry was on Lamestream Sports recently. That was a good listen if you have listened. And I think he's, I don't know if it was for, what is the hockey one? I just talked about the hockey one the other day.
Gold Standard.
Yeah, the Gold Standard. I don't know if it's going to be for Gold Standard or for Lamestream Sports, but Terry Crisp, he just completed an interview for that. Spoiler alerts, that'll be coming on one of the podcasts later. And then, of course, there's BroadwaySportsMedia.com. You can go over there and find all kinds of great soccer content that they got going on over there at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. The best soccer content, maybe the only, but it's definitely the best soccer content is over at SpeedwaySoccer.com. Even if or BroadwaySportsMedia.com. Even if there was another soccer place, it's still the best because I don't even know what the other soccer content would be. So, they win. They win automatically by default because they're so good.
In a landslide.
For Mike, I'm Zach. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.